The Israeli government says it's expanded its goals in the war on Gaza to include the return of Israeli residents to areas near the border with Lebanon. The hostilities there have forced tens of thousands of people on both sides of the border to leave their homes. There's been escalating conflict between Israel and the Lebanese group Hezbollah since the war on Gaza began. Lebanon continues to be severely affected since Israel's war on Gaza began in October last year. More than 100,000 people have fled villages and towns in southern Lebanon because of the cross-border strikes between the Israeli army and Hezbollah. According to the UN, at least 149,000 people remain within 10 kilometers of the so-called Blue Line. That's the United Nations patrolled boundary that separates Israel and the occupied Golan Heights from Lebanon. Mohamad Elmasry is a professor of media studies at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. He's joining us here in Doha. Thank you very much again for being with us. If Israel is increasing its focus on the border, the northern border with Lebanon and the battle with Hezbollah, what does that tell us, if anything, about how it regards what's going on in Gaza?
I mean, there are certainly some underlying questions that we have to, ask ourselves. To what extent is there genuinely a split between Netanyahu on the one hand and Gallant and the military apparatus on the other about the possibility of expanding into the northern front, right?
You should just say Yoav Gallant is the defense minister within the coalition.
Right, exactly. And he's been opposed, as reported in Israeli media, he's been opposed for quite a long time now to the possibility of expanding the war or a so-called all-out war with Hezbollah. He's taking a more cautious approach. The military believes that Israel might be stretched too thin. Not that they don't necessarily have the manpower or the weaponry to fight on these multiple fronts, but the fear is that they might be sort of exposing themselves in the event that another actor, Iran, for instance, would want to attack Israel during that time. So that's one question that we have to ask ourselves. Another question is about how this might affect the war on Gaza, as you alluded to in your question. My hunch is that Netanyahu doesn't have any intention of letting up in Gaza. I think that we could probably expect more of the same. And the last question that has also been raised in Israeli media reports is to what extent is this decision simply a byproduct of Netanyahu's own personal ambitions to extend the war for as long as possible because of his own personal political battles.
We've seen months of protests against the Netanyahu coalition, particularly demanding the return of the captives. People there say they want a ceasefire, but that is in order to return the captives. One of the things that has been a repeated theme amongst analysts that we've been speaking to over the last few months is the protests themselves don't seem to have a lot of impact, but the position of the military usually does, because the military is so ingrained within Israeli society. If we're seeing some sort of division of opinion, for want of a better phrase, between the military and Netanyahu's side of the coalition, is that possibly going to be enough to start changing the emphasis that the Netanyahu coalition has within this?
It could, but I think that the about face that Yoav Gallant did just in the last 24 hours is an indication that Netanyahu and his far-right coalition, led by people like Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, they still have a lot of weight here. They still have the majority of the influence. As I said, Gallant has been opposed to this. He's saying that we have to take a cautious approach. He dismissed many of Netanyahu's claims, including the claim that they had to go to an all-out war against Hezbollah. He dismissed it as chatter. He called the idea of total victory nonsense, right? That's a direct quote from Yoav Gallant. And now, just yesterday, he's saying we are running out of time. We have to go at Hezbollah. And so I read that as Gallant is taking very seriously these threats that Netanyahu is prepared to dismiss him. That's what's been reported in Israeli media over the past couple of days, and that might be influencing his discourse and his decision making, because he obviously doesn't want to be dismissed as defense minister right now in the middle of a war.
We really appreciate you giving us the benefit of your analysis in this. Mohamad Elmasry, as always, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.